The morning sun poured through the large glass windows of the new marketing office, lighting up the rows of desks where employees hurried to start their day. Among them was a young woman named Claire, dressed sharply in a beige blazer and heels that clicked confidently against the floor. She had just joined the company after finishing her master's degree, full of ambition and determination to climb the corporate ladder. She looked around, scanning the office with curious eyes. Everything seemed new and exciting, but she couldn't help noticing the way some people worked quietly while others chatted in corners. She believed she was different, smarter, more driven, and destined for something bigger. Her manager introduced her to a few co-workers, and soon she was led to her desk beside a man named Ethan. He looked plain and modest, wearing a simple shirt and slightly worn-out shoes. He smiled politely and welcomed her, but his quiet tone barely caught her attention. "Thanks," she replied quickly, already turning her focus to her computer. In her mind, she assumed he must have been an assistant or someone who'd been doing the same boring job for years. He didn't look ambitious, just calm, like he had accepted his place. Throughout the first week, Claire noticed that Ethan always arrived earlier than anyone else. By the time she came in, he was already typing away, organizing files, or helping others with their tasks. He didn't talk much, and when he did, it was usually to help solve someone's problem. But to Claire, he seemed invisible. She didn't see much value in people who didn't aim high. One afternoon, as she joined a few co-workers for lunch, she overheard them talking about Ethan. "He's been here for years," one of them said. "Knows everything about the systems and clients. He's the go-to person for any issue." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Then why is he still in that position?" she asked, sipping her coffee. The coworker shrugged. "He doesn't really push for promotion. I think he just likes helping others." Claire smirked slightly. "That's nice, but without ambition you don't go far." The others went quiet. She didn't mean to sound arrogant, but she truly believed that effort without drive was a waste. A few days later, her first big assignment arrived. She had to prepare a client presentation and was excited to show her skills. She worked for hours, crafting slides, arranging data, and rehearsing her points. But when she presented it to her manager, he frowned. "The concept is good," he said, "but some of the data seems off. I think you used last quarter's figures." Claire's heart sank. She had worked so hard, she couldn't believe she'd made a mistake. The manager suggested she get some help from Ethan, who handled most of the reports. She hesitated but agreed. Later that afternoon, she approached him with her laptop in hand. "Hi, can you take a quick look at this file? The numbers seem a bit confusing," she said, trying to sound casual. Ethan looked up, smiled slightly, and nodded. "Of course. Let's check it together." He reviewed her work carefully, comparing it with the company's reports. Within minutes, he pointed out where the confusion came from. "The database you used was from the previous cycle," he explained. "This is the updated one." Claire leaned over his shoulder, watching as he corrected the data smoothly, adding small notes for her reference. She noticed how calmly he worked, never rushing or criticizing. "Thanks," she said softly. "You're really good with these things." He smiled. "Just experience. I've made the same mistake before." It was the first time she saw a glimpse of humility in him, something she wasn't used to. Still, she brushed it off, telling herself he was just good with numbers, nothing more. Weeks turned into months, and Claire settled into the office routine. She was praised for her energy and presentation skills, but she often found herself stuck whenever technical or data issues came up, and each time it was Ethan who quietly helped her fix them. She noticed how everyone seemed to like him, receptionists, interns, even the managers. They respected him not because of his title, but because of how dependable he was. Whenever someone was in trouble, Ethan was the first to lend a hand, often staying late to finish tasks that weren't even his. But to Claire, this still didn't make sense. Why work so hard without asking for recognition? Why stay content when he could aim higher? She couldn't understand that kind of mindset. One Friday evening, as most people were leaving early, Claire stayed back to finish a report. She looked around the quiet office and noticed only one other person, Ethan. He was cleaning up a pile of printed documents and organizing them neatly. "You're still here?" she asked. He looked up, smiling faintly. "Just wrapping up some pending files." She hesitated, then asked, "Don't you ever get tired of doing all this extra work?" He shrugged lightly. "Sometimes, but I'd rather leave things in order than let others deal with the mess on Monday." She couldn't help but smile a little. You really care about this place, huh? I care about doing my best, he replied simply. It doesn't matter what position I hold. What matters is that I do something that makes a difference, even if it's small. His words lingered in her mind long after she went home that night. For the first time, she thought about how differently he saw the world. The following week, a small incident changed how she viewed him even more. A coworker, new to the team, accidentally deleted an important client folder. The manager was furious and the young employee looked ready to cry. Just as the tension grew, Ethan quietly stepped forward. It's my fault, he said. I should have backed up the folder before letting anyone edit it. The room fell silent. Claire watched in disbelief. Everyone knew he wasn't responsible, yet he took the blame to protect the new employee. Later, she found him in the break room, drinking coffee like nothing had happened. Why did you do that? She asked, almost frustrated. It wasn't your fault, he smiled calmly. Mistakes happen. I can handle the manager's reaction better than she can. But still, she said, shaking her head. That's not fair. Maybe, he replied. But sometimes fairness isn't the point. Kindness is. For the first time, Claire didn't have an answer. She felt a mix of confusion and admiration she couldn't quite explain. That night, as she lay in bed, she replayed the day in her head. She thought about how she had judged him on his looks, his job title, and his quiet nature. She realized she had never once asked what his life was like outside work. There was something different about him, something she couldn't label yet. It wasn't weakness or lack of ambition. It was strength, the quiet kind that didn't need to be loud. From that day on, Claire began to watch him more closely, not in a judgmental way, but out of curiosity. She noticed the small things, how he held doors open, how he listened when others spoke, and how he never raised his voice no matter how stressful things got. She started to see that being below or above someone wasn't about status or appearance. It was about values, something she had never truly understood before. And though she didn't say it out loud, something inside her began to shift. A quiet respect started to grow for the man she once ignored. She didn't know it yet, but her view of success and of people was about to change forever. The weeks rolled by and life at the office continued with the same quiet rhythm. Deadlines, meetings, and coffee breaks filled each day, but something had started to change inside Claire. She still worked hard and aimed for recognition, but now she found herself noticing things she never paid attention to before, especially about Ethan. He wasn't just good at his job. He was thoughtful in ways people rarely noticed. When someone forgot their lunch, he would quietly leave an extra sandwich on their desk without saying a word. When the printer jammed, he'd fix it before anyone even asked. And when people were stressed, he somehow knew how to make them feel calm with a simple word or a small smile. One rainy morning, Claire walked into the office drenched and frustrated. The traffic had been terrible, and she had spilled coffee on her sleeve. She sighed and threw her wet umbrella aside. Ethan looked up from his desk. Rough morning? He asked gently. You could say that, she muttered, trying to dry her sleeve with a tissue. He got up and brought her a clean towel from the small cabinet near the sink. Here, this might help. She took it hesitantly, a little surprised he even kept something like that around. Thanks, she said, her tone softening. He nodded and went back to his work, not expecting a conversation. But for some reason, Claire kept glancing at him that day. There was something about the way he carried himself, steady, calm, like he didn't let the world shake him. Later that week, an issue came up in one of the company's projects. A client was upset about a report error, and the whole team was in a panic. Claire stayed late trying to fix it, but no matter how many times she checked, something was off. Ethan noticed she hadn't left yet. Still here? He asked. Yeah, she said, rubbing her eyes. This report isn't adding up. The client meeting is tomorrow morning, and if I don't fix this, the manager's going to kill me. He pulled up a chair next to her. Let me take a look. For the next hour, they worked side by side. He didn't take over. He guided her, showing her small details she'd missed. He explained things patiently, never making her feel small. His calm focus helped her breathe easier. Finally, they found the mistake, a small data mix-up hidden deep in the spreadsheet. Claire let out a sigh of relief. You just saved me, she said. He smiled. You already did most of the work. I just helped connect the dots. As they packed up, she noticed how late it had gotten. You didn't have to stay, she said. I don't mind, he replied. It's easier to work when the world is quiet. That sentence stayed in her mind long after she went home. When the world is quiet. There was a kind of peace in him she didn't understand, and maybe that's what made her curious. A few days later, she overheard two employees talking near the pantry. Did you know Ethan works 2 jobs? One whispered. He does night shifts at a local store. Really? Why? I think he's paying for his mother's medical treatment. She's been unwell for a while. Claire froze where she stood, pretending to scroll through her phone so they wouldn't notice she was listening. She felt a strange heaviness in her chest. All this time she had thought of him as someone who lacked ambition, but now she saw a man carrying quiet burdens with grace. That evening, she watched him from across the office as he packed his worn-out bag. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing faint marks of fatigue on his arms. Yet his expression was the same, calm, kind, and unbothered. The next morning, she brought in 2 cups of coffee. As she placed one on his desk, he looked up surprised. You drink black, right? She said. He nodded, smiling. You didn't have to. I wanted to, she replied quickly, trying to sound casual. Consider it a thank you for helping me the other night. He accepted it gratefully. Then thank you, he said. It was a small gesture, but it felt like something had shifted between them. For the first time, their conversations went beyond work. They talked about random things, books, music, favorite places to eat. She found out he loved playing the guitar but hadn't had much time for it lately. He learned she dreamed of starting her own firm someday. One evening, while they both stayed late again, she asked, Don't you ever wish for something bigger? You're smart, skilled. You could easily get promoted or find a better job. He thought for a moment. Maybe someday, he said softly. But right now, my mother needs me more than a promotion does. Everything else can wait. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. He wasn't lazy or unambitious, he simply had priorities that went deeper than titles or paychecks. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Their team was preparing for a client visit and everyone was stressed. The presentation was due the next morning, and one of the slides with crucial financial data disappeared. People began blaming each other. Who deleted the file? The manager demanded. Everyone looked confused. Claire felt her stomach tighten. She had edited that file earlier, but hadn't realized she might have accidentally saved it in the wrong folder. Before she could speak, Ethan stepped forward. I must have renamed it by mistake, he said calmly. I'll restore it right away. The manager frowned but nodded. Just get it done. And please be careful next time. Claire watched in disbelief as he quietly fixed the issue. After the meeting, she approached him. Why did you take the blame? She asked. It was me. I messed it up, he smiled lightly. It's fine. I didn't want you to get yelled at in front of everyone. But you could get in trouble, she said. He shrugged. It's not the end of the world. She stared at him, speechless. You're impossible, you know that? He chuckled softly. Maybe. But sometimes it's easier to keep peace than to prove a point. That night, as she walked to her car, her eyes stung with guilt. She had spent months thinking he was beneath her, yet he kept proving that his heart and strength were far above anything she had ever known. The next morning, she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about how unfair life was to people like him, those who worked the hardest but stayed unnoticed. She wanted to do something, but she didn't know what. Later that day, when everyone left for lunch, she saw Ethan sitting alone at his desk, scrolling through something on his phone. Curious, she glanced at his screen. It was a picture of him with an older woman in a hospital gown, his mother. They were both smiling, but she could see the tiredness in their eyes. He noticed her standing there and locked his phone quickly, a little embarrassed. Sorry, didn't mean to get distracted. It's fine, she said softly. Is that your mother? He nodded. Yeah, she's doing better now, but the treatment is expensive. So I work extra shifts. Claire's throat tightened. You're doing a lot for her. She did everything for me, he said. This is the least I can do. There was so much sincerity in his words that she couldn't respond. For the rest of the day, she couldn't shake the image of him juggling work, life, and responsibility without a single complaint. That evening, as she packed her bag, she noticed a sticky note on her desk. It read, "Great job today. Your presentation slides were solid. Keep it up." It was signed with Ethan's initials. She smiled to herself. It was such a small thing, but it felt meaningful. She realized that for all her efforts to stand out, it was his quiet encouragement that gave her confidence. In the days that followed, Claire began to change. She stopped dismissing others so easily, started helping teammates, and even shared credit when it was due. Ethan never pointed it out, but he noticed. He could see her trying, and that was enough for him. Slowly, a strange bond began to grow between them. Not romantic, but something deeper. It was built on respect, understanding, and quiet gratitude. She no longer saw him as below her. In fact, she was starting to see that maybe he had been above her all along, in ways she was only beginning to understand. And though she didn't realize it yet, this new understanding was going to change not just how she saw him, but how she saw the entire meaning of success itself. The office was unusually tense that Monday morning. Everyone had received an email from the management announcing a new project that could decide the company's future. It was a massive deal with a foreign client, and whoever led it successfully would gain major recognition. People whispered about it all day, wondering who the manager would choose. By noon, the announcement came. Claire had been selected to lead the project. She was thrilled, but also nervous. It was the biggest responsibility she'd ever had. The presentation deadline was just 3 weeks away, and the workload looked overwhelming. Still, she smiled confidently during the meeting, promising to deliver outstanding results. After the meeting ended, she turned to Ethan. "Looks like I've got a lot on my plate," she said with a nervous laugh. He smiled. "You'll do great. Just take it one step at a time." She appreciated his calmness, but didn't want to admit how anxious she really felt. The first few days went smoothly. She created an outline, assigned tasks, and tried to manage the team efficiently. But soon problems began piling up. Some data didn't match. A few employees missed their deadlines, and the client kept changing requirements. She stayed late every night trying to fix everything herself, afraid to ask for help. One evening, when most of the office had gone home, she sat at her desk surrounded by scattered papers and half-empty coffee cups. Her eyes were tired and her mind was spinning. That's when Ethan walked by, noticing her frustration. "You haven't gone home yet?" he asked. She sighed. "Can't. This project's a mess. Every time I fix one issue, 2 more appear." He looked at her screen for a moment. "Maybe I can help?" Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes makes a difference. She hesitated. Part of her wanted to prove she could handle it alone. But another part, the exhausted one, knew she needed help. "All right," she said quietly, "but just for an hour." Ethan pulled up a chair beside her and started reviewing the documents. He moved with patience and focus, analyzing every small detail. Within minutes, he pointed out a few areas that could be simplified. He even found a pattern in the client's request that Claire hadn't noticed. "You see this?" he said, highlighting a section. "They're repeating the same concerns in different forms. If we address that early, we can save a lot of time." Claire looked at him, surprised. "I didn't catch that." "You're right." They spent the next 2 hours working side by side, brainstorming solutions and reorganizing tasks. For the first time in days, Claire felt like things were under control. When she finally looked at the clock, it was past midnight. "You really didn't have to stay this late," she said. He shrugged. "I didn't mind. We make a good team." That simple sentence stayed in her mind long after he left. "We make a good team." It made her realize something. Ethan didn't care about who got credit. He just cared about doing things right. Over the next few days, they continued working together. The office noticed how often they stayed late, whispering about how they seemed to complement each other's strengths. Claire was quick and creative, while Ethan was methodical and calm. He never dismissed her ideas. Instead, he helped her refine them. One evening, as they worked on the presentation slides, Claire leaned back and said, "How do you stay so patient? Even when things fall apart, you don't lose your cool." He smiled faintly. "I've learned that panic doesn't fix problems. Patience does." She laughed softly. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said. "But I've had enough chaos in life to know that calmness is worth holding on to." There was a quiet sincerity in his tone that made her heart soften. She wanted to ask more, but the look in his eyes told her it wasn't something he liked talking about. Days passed quickly. The project began to take shape beautifully. Their teamwork became the talk of the office. Even their manager started dropping by to compliment their progress. Claire felt proud. not just of the work, but of the person she was becoming through it. But success never comes without challenges. A week before the final deadline, a major issue appeared. A technical error caused part of the client's data to be lost, and the presentation draft was incomplete. Everyone panicked. The manager demanded answers. Claire felt the floor drop from beneath her. She blamed herself for not creating backups. The pressure was too much, and for the first time she broke down in front of Ethan. "I can't fix this," she said, her voice shaking. "We'll lose the client, and it'll be my fault." Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll fix it," he said firmly. "Don't give up now." "How?" she asked. "Half the files are gone." He opened his laptop calmly and began working. "I've been saving copies on the shared drive just in case something like this happened," he explained. "We might not have everything, but we can rebuild most of it." Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You did that?" He smiled faintly. "Just a habit. I like being prepared." For the next several hours they worked tirelessly, reconstructing everything from scratch. When the others came in the next morning, they found the project back on track. Everyone was amazed at how quickly the crisis had been resolved. Later that day, when the manager praised Claire for handling the situation well, she looked at Ethan. He gave her a small nod as if to say, "It's your moment. Take it." That night, as they walked out of the building together, she said quietly, "You saved me again." He shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just helped a little." She looked at him, her expression soft. "You know, I used to think being successful meant standing above everyone else, but I think I've been wrong. Maybe success is about lifting others too." He smiled. "That's a good way to see it." Over the next few days, as the project neared completion, something changed in how Claire saw the world. She no longer rushed to take credit or prove herself. She focused on teamwork, kindness, and doing her best. And Ethan, always steady, always patient, was the quiet force that kept her grounded. The night before the big presentation, they stayed late again. The office was silent except for the soft hum of computers. Claire looked over the slides one last time and sighed with relief. "It's perfect," she said. Ethan smiled. "You did great." "We did great," she corrected. He nodded, pleased. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights twinkled outside the windows, reflecting on their tired but satisfied faces. It was a rare moment of peace, the calm before the storm. The next day, the presentation went better than anyone had expected. The clients were impressed, the management was thrilled, and the project was declared a huge success. The office buzzed with excitement, and everyone congratulated Claire for her leadership. Through all the noise, she searched for Ethan. She found him standing at the back, smiling quietly, clapping along with the rest. When their eyes met, she mouthed a simple, "Thank you." He just nodded. That night, when everyone went out to celebrate, Claire noticed Ethan quietly slipping out of the office. She followed him outside. "You're not coming with us?" she asked. He shook his head. "I promised to visit my mother tonight. She's waiting." She smiled softly. "You never stop giving, do you?" He chuckled. "I just try to keep the important things in balance." As he walked away into the dim street, she stood there watching him go, realizing that his strength wasn't in how loud he spoke or how high he reached. It was in how deeply he cared, how quietly he rose above every obstacle. And for the first time, Claire admitted to herself that she admired him, not for his work, but for the kind of person he was. The man she once thought was below her had become the person she looked up to the most. She didn't know it yet, but this project wasn't just about career growth. It was the turning point of her entire life. The moment she began to see true worth not in titles or recognition, but in character, humility, and heart. The morning after the big presentation felt like a dream. The entire office buzzed with energy and excitement. People stopped by Claire's desk to congratulate her, praising her leadership and creativity. The manager called her into his office to personally thank her for the success. She smiled, proud but still humble, knowing deep down who had helped her make it happen. As the praise continued throughout the day, she looked around for Ethan. He was at his desk as usual, quietly finishing some reports. When she walked over to thank him, he just smiled and said, "You earned it." Then he went back to work like nothing extraordinary had happened. But something extraordinary had happened. The project had caught the attention of the higher management team. It wasn't just a success. It was one of the best campaigns the company had ever produced. A week later, an internal memo was released. The company was going through a restructuring process, opening new leadership positions. There was talk about promotions, salary adjustments, and departmental shifts. People were excited and nervous, whispering in the hallways about who might be moving up. Claire had mixed feelings. She hoped her efforts would be recognized, but she also found herself thinking about Ethan. He had been there for years, always doing more than expected, yet never getting the spotlight. She wondered if this might finally be his time. The announcement came during a company-wide meeting. Everyone gathered in the main conference room waiting for the manager to reveal the new appointments. Claire sat near the front, her heart pounding. Ethan sat toward the back, looking calm as ever. The manager began speaking, praising the team for their hard work and dedication. Then he started listing the new positions. "And finally," he said, pausing for effect, "we are proud to announce our new Director of Operations, a position awarded to someone who has shown unmatched commitment, intelligence, and integrity over the years." The room fell silent. Everyone leaned forward. "That person," the manager continued, smiling, "is Ethan." For a few seconds, the entire room stayed quiet, as if no one had heard correctly. Then, applause erupted. Claire's eyes widened in surprise. She turned around and there he was, Ethan standing slowly, looking stunned yet humble. He walked to the front as people clapped and cheered. Claire felt something heavy and warm inside her chest, a mixture of pride, admiration, and emotion she couldn't quite name. When he reached the front, the manager shook his hand. "You've been the backbone of this place for years," he said. "You've led without a title, helped without asking for anything, and inspired everyone around you. You've earned this." Ethan nodded, smiling shyly. "Thank you, I'm grateful. I've just tried to do my best every day." His words were simple, but they carried more weight than any speech could. After the meeting, everyone gathered around to congratulate him. Claire approached him last. "Director of Operations," she said, teasing slightly. "That sounds big." He chuckled softly. "It feels strange. I never expected it." "Well, you deserve it," she said sincerely. "I mean that." He looked at her, his expression gentle. "Thank you, Claire. You've grown a lot, too." That moment felt like a quiet acknowledgement between two people who had walked through fire and come out stronger. Over the next few weeks, the office changed. Ethan moved into his new role, and everyone seemed to respect him even more. But he didn't act differently. He still greeted everyone with the same calm smile, still helped whoever needed it, and still worked late when deadlines loomed. The only difference was that now, people finally saw him for who he truly was. Claire noticed how the employees, even the newer ones, went to him for advice. He listened patiently, never talking down to anyone. It amazed her how effortlessly he earned trust, something titles alone could never give. One afternoon, while she was preparing a report, she heard two co-workers talking nearby. "It's funny, isn't it?" one said. "We used to think he'd never move up, and now he's our boss." "Yeah," the other replied. "He didn't need to push or brag. He just kept working quietly. Guess that's what real strength looks like." Claire smiled to herself. They were right. She thought back to when she first met him, the quiet man she had dismissed as unambitious. How wrong she had been. Later that week, Ethan called her into his office. "I wanted to talk to you about something," he said. She sat down, curious. "I'm planning to form a new project team," he said. "A small one focused on creative campaigns. I want you to lead it." Her eyes widened. "Me?" He nodded. "You've proven yourself. You've got the energy, ideas, and leadership. You just needed a bit of balance, and I think you found it." For a moment, she didn't know what to say. She felt grateful but also deeply moved. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said finally. "Just keep doing what you do best," he said with a smile. "Lift others as you rise." His words hit her heart like a gentle reminder of everything she'd learned. Over the next few weeks, she led the new team with passion and confidence. This time, she wasn't driven by ego or competition. She focused on teamwork, patience, and empathy, the same qualities Ethan had shown her. People noticed the change in her. She was still ambitious, but now her ambition had warmth. One evening after everyone left, she stopped by Ethan's office. He was still working as usual. "You know," she said, leaning on the doorframe, "I used to think success was about standing higher than everyone else. But now I realize it's about standing together." He smiled. "Took you a while to learn that?" She laughed softly. "Yeah, well, I had a good teacher." They both sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then she asked, "How's your mother doing?" "Better," he said. "She's recovering well. I can finally breathe a little." "I'm glad," she said warmly. "You deserve some peace." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Peace isn't about having everything you want. It's about being content with what you've given." She nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. He always had a way of saying things that stayed with her long after. When she left his office that night, she couldn't help but feel inspired. She looked back at him, still focused, still humble, and realized he wasn't just a co-worker or a mentor. He was a reminder of what true character looked like. Weeks later, the company held a celebration for the success of the recent campaigns. The management invited everyone, including clients. It was a big event filled with speeches, laughter, and applause. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he stepped onto the stage quietly, holding the microphone like it was something fragile. "I don't have a fancy speech," he began. "I just want to thank everyone here. What we achieved this year wasn't about one person. It was about all of us. Success doesn't come from standing above others. It comes from standing with them." The room fell silent, then burst into applause. Claire felt tears in her eyes. His words were simple, but they carried truth she now understood deeply. As the event ended and people started leaving, she found herself standing beside him again. "You really do have a way with words," she said. He smiled. "I just speak from the heart." She looked around the room filled with people whose lives he had quietly touched. "You've risen above everyone," she said softly, "but not the way people usually mean it. You've risen in the way that truly matters." He didn't reply, just smiled humbly, as if he didn't quite believe he had done anything special, but she knew he had. That night, as she walked home, Claire thought about the journey they'd both taken, the judgments, the mistakes, the lessons, and the quiet strength that changed everything. She realized that real greatness isn't loud or proud, it's patient, kind, and steady, and in that realization, she finally understood why some people rise, not because they climb faster, but because they lift others as they go. Months passed since Ethan's promotion, and the office had settled into a new rhythm. The company was thriving under his leadership, and everyone seemed happier. There was a quiet confidence that filled the place now. People felt heard, valued, and motivated. Claire noticed it every day, and it made her proud to be part of it. Her team's creative projects were getting noticed too. One of their recent campaigns had gone viral online, earning praise from industry leaders. It was the kind of success that once would have made her focus only on herself, but now she saw it differently. Each time someone complimented her work, she thought of her team, the designers, the editors, and the late-night brainstorming sessions filled with laughter and coffee. One evening, after a long day, Claire found herself walking out of the building just as Ethan was locking his car. "Still here?" she asked, smiling. He laughed softly. "You too? I thought I was the last one." "I was finalizing the client pitch," she said. "You know me, I like things perfect." "Perfection is overrated," he said gently. "Consistency is what matters." She nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You always have a way of saying something simple that makes sense," he smiled. "That's because I've lived long enough to learn the hard way." They stood in the parking lot for a moment, the cool air brushing against them. The city lights flickered in the distance and the faint hum of cars filled the silence. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said quietly. "Of course. When you first started here, when people didn't notice you, didn't it bother you?" He thought for a second before answering. "At first it did. I wanted recognition like everyone else. But then I realized I didn't need to be seen by everyone, just by the people who mattered. Sometimes doing good work in silence says more than shouting your success." She looked at him, admiration in her eyes. "That's a rare mindset," he shrugged. "Maybe, but it kept me going." They said goodbye shortly after, but his words stayed in her mind all night. When she lay in bed later, she thought about how much both of them had changed. A year ago, she had been driven by pride and the need to prove herself. Now she was driven by purpose, and a lot of that was because of him. The next few months brought new challenges. The company expanded into new markets and the workload doubled. Ethan was constantly traveling for meetings, and Claire often found herself running things in his absence. It wasn't easy, but she handled it with a calm confidence that surprised even her. One Friday evening after everyone had left, she got a message from him. "Conference went great. Proud of how the team's holding up. Thank you." She smiled as she read it. That simple message meant more to her than any formal recognition. A few weeks later, there was talk of another big award, this time for leadership and innovation. The nomination included both Ethan and Claire. When she found out, she laughed. "Well, looks like I'm up against the boss," she joked. Ethan smiled. "It's not a competition. It's a celebration. Either way, it's a win for the team." But deep down, she couldn't help but feel nervous. The award was a big deal, and it would be presented at a large industry gala. As the night approached, she prepared herself mentally, reminding her heart that it didn't matter who won. What mattered was the journey that brought them there. The night of the gala was magical. The ballroom glittered with lights and soft music. People in elegant clothes filled the room, talking excitedly. Claire looked stunning in a simple navy dress, while Ethan looked sharp in a classic black suit. When the awards began, she could feel the tension rise. They announced smaller categories first: marketing, design, innovation, before reaching the big one. Leadership of the Year. The presenter walked to the microphone. "This award goes to someone who not only leads with intelligence but also with heart," she said. "Someone who lifts others, inspires change, and leads quietly but powerfully." Claire's chest tightened. "The Leadership of the Year award goes to Ethan." The room erupted in applause. Claire stood up, clapping with a genuine smile. She wasn't disappointed, not at all. Watching him walk to the stage filled her with pride. When he began speaking, his voice was calm and heartfelt. "I don't see this as a personal award," he said. "It belongs to every person who believed in teamwork and kindness. I've learned that leadership isn't about standing above others. It's about standing beside them." His eyes briefly met hers in the crowd. "And sometimes," he added, "the best leaders are the ones who remind you of what really matters even when they don't realize they're doing it." She felt her throat tighten. He was talking about her, she knew it. After the ceremony, people crowded around him for photos and congratulations. Claire waited until the rush was over before approaching him. "You made everyone emotional up there," she said softly. He laughed lightly. "I didn't mean to. I just spoke from the heart." "That's what makes it powerful," she said. He looked at her warmly. "You've come a long way, Claire. I hope you're proud of yourself." "I am," she said honestly. "But I'm even prouder of the person who taught me what real success looks like." He smiled. "Then I guess we both learned something from each other." They stood there for a while, talking quietly as the music played in the background. It didn't feel like a celebration of one person. It felt like a shared moment of peace and understanding. As months went by, Claire continued to grow in her career. She became a respected voice in the company, often guiding younger employees just like Ethan once guided her. People admired her, not just for her skills but for her kindness and empathy. Ethan, meanwhile, focused on bigger goals. He began mentoring new managers and helping the company open offices abroad. But he never forgot where he started, and he never stopped being humble. One afternoon, Claire walked into his office holding a small gift bag. "What's this?" he asked, surprised. "Just something I thought you'd like," she said, smiling. He opened it and found a framed quote inside. It read, "True leaders don't rise above people, they rise with them." He looked up at her, touched. "This is perfect," she smiled. "It reminded me of you." He nodded slowly. "Thank you, Claire. That means a lot." As she turned to leave, he said quietly, "You know, one day you'll be in my position, maybe even higher." She laughed. "We'll see. But if that ever happens, I'll do it your way." "My way?" he asked. "With patience," she said. "And heart." He smiled, knowing she already understood everything that mattered. Years later, when people in the company spoke of Ethan, they didn't just talk about his title or his success. They talked about his kindness, his calmness, and the way he made everyone feel seen. And when they spoke of Claire, they mentioned how she carried that same light, how she became the kind of leader who never forgot where she came from. Sometimes, she'd catch herself thinking back to the first day she met him, the quiet man she once underestimated. And every time she remembered, she smiled at how life had turned things around. Because in the end, it wasn't about who started higher or lower. It was about who grew, who learned, and who lifted others along the way. And as time went on, the world around them kept changing, but that one truth stayed the same. Respect, humility, and kindness always rise above everything else.